Good evening to all of you. Can all of you hear me at the back? Okay. So, first of all, extremely honored and privileged to be here. I know the Madras Management Association is by far the best management association in India and has been winning this award for many, many years. And to be able to address a crowd like that gives me great pleasure. So, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for calling me. And thank you, Suresh, for the very nice words about the book. I'm going to touch on 3 different topics today evening, but don't worry, I won't take too much of time. We'll try and keep this as short as possible so that we can have more interactions. I prefer talking to the audience as opposed to speaking one way. One of the reasons I prefer to do that is because it makes it easy for me instead of just talking. So the 3 things that I'm going to talk about is, first I'm going to briefly touch upon what we did and what we did as an entrepreneurs when we started. The second thing that I'm going to talk about is, why did I write this book? Some of the incidents that he was talking about are there in the book, but I'm not sure I'm going to touch upon them too much. I would urge all of you to certainly buy the book, because I think you'll find more value, and I'm sure you'll enjoy those episodes and the humor and all the things that he said, but I'll certainly touch about one important part of the book, which is why did I write the book, which is, I think, it's the most important part of the story that is briefly touched upon the book, but I'm going to talk about why did I write the book. That's the second thing. And the third thing that I'm going to talk about, which is an extension and a consequence of my experiences as an entrepreneur and as writing the book, is I'm going to talk about the concept of success and failure, which is essentially the crux of my book. And that's the reason I, after huge deliberation, picked the topic, the title of the book, which failing to succeed. And a lot of people have actually, I know people have written to me saying they bought the book because they found the title very intriguing. And so I think the title is very good. And the story that he talked about, the Apollo, and it's a true story. NASA did call it, they called it the most very successful failure. And I keep talking about this failures and success across the country in multiple forums. So last month I was talking to somebody in an event like this, and somebody got up and said, am I India's most successful failure? So I don't know the answer to that, but we'll find out. So the first thing is, way back in 99 there were less than 3 million people using the internet. Just to put that in perspective, close to 500 million people use the internet today. Less than 3 million use the internet. Almost 50 million people in India shop online today. When we started, nobody was shopping online because there was no online shopping site in India. There were probably a few thousand people who were essentially buying books from Amazon.com and getting it shipped to India. But nobody in India was shopping because there was no site. So 6 of us who started this crazy journey and saying we want to set up an e-commerce site in India, and some very interesting incidents that led to it. Again, I'm not going to reveal too much of it. I would urge you to buy the book. But the very interesting incidents that happened when we set up the company. And one of the things I must acknowledge, certainly in this room, is there are a lot of people who helped us in our journey. When we started, we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. And one of the gentlemen who helped us a lot, Mr. Srinivasa Murthy, who's sitting here, was extremely helpful to us in the year 2000, and since then has been a well-wisher and a friend. So he was very instrumental in helping us set up one part of our business, which is the bookstore, and has remained a very dear friend. Like him, many hundreds of people, few of them named he of course is mentioned in the book, many are not. They all helped us build this crazy concept of India's first e-commerce company. In 2002, in about 2001, in the US, like he was mentioning, there was a big dot-com boom, and then in 2000 there was a dot-com bust, and everything that was huge just collapsed. And e-commerce, or e-com in short, essentially moved to being truly a four-letter word. Nobody wanted to talk about e-com. And people put millions and billions of dollars in online stores selling groceries, and all of them just collapsed. Meanwhile, in our lack of awareness, and sometimes not knowing is a big advantage, because you don't know what to do, you actually go and do things. There's this famous story of the bumblebee that all of you here must have known, saying that, look, if the bumblebee knew about the laws of aviation, it wouldn't fly, but it doesn't, so it flies. So because we didn't know what we were doing, we did all sorts of crazy things. We launched music, books, jewelry, all of that. One of the things that we set up is a grocery store. And we were losing a lot of money. We didn't know what to do. We had to somehow conserve cash. So we went, one thing led to another, and just to make sure that we got rid of the inventory, we opened up. The craziest thing is we had no idea about retailing. We went and opened an offline grocery store. I mean, we were running an online store selling multiple stuff. We were running an online store selling groceries. It was losing money, so we went and opened an offline grocery store, which is the most stupid thing that anybody could do. 4 years later, it went on to become the second largest grocery chain in India, which shows essentially for a lot of entrepreneurs, you just don't know what's going to happen, right? The thing is to just keep doing and keep moving. And we opened a grocery store primarily to sell inventory that we had created for online. And it ended up being the second largest grocery chain in India. And in December 2006, the Aditya Birla Group came and said, we want to buy the company. And we said, we want to sell the company. Because we realized retailing was going to become very big. We were going to get trapped into very large industrial groups all wanting to enter retail. We didn't want to get into crossfire, so we sold. And they bought it and rebranded it. And you must have seen some of those stores. It's called More. In those days, before that, it was called Trinetra. So when we were running it, it was called, we had two brands, a brand called Trinetra in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka and Kerala, we called it Fab Mall. So that's the company that we started, and then I continued running the company called India Plaza, because we sold the brand to Fab Mall to the Aditya Birla Group. We couldn't use the name, so we changed the name to India Plaza. And it was a very interesting, exciting journey. We did all sorts of things. A lot of things that we did even today has not been done from an innovation point of view. Even though e-commerce entrepreneurs have spent billions of dollars, they haven't done a whole lot of stuff that we did. Most of the things that happened first on the internet in India were achieved by us, and those are the things that I talk about. But what happened at the end, which is where the book comes in, is that a journey which should have ended in a very pleasant manner, certainly in a far more fulfilling manner from a financial standpoint, ended in a very unpleasant manner, very, very unpleasantly. I mean, I can't describe to you how bad things were. And people who've read the book, he's read it, he of course has read it. It was it was a journey that actually destroyed my personal dignity completely. It destroyed me as a person. It destroyed me as a human being. It removed my trust on people. It completely shattered my family. My wife and son and I went through an extremely difficult period. A period that briefly, even the thought of ending everything crossed our minds. So, the book is full of humor, and recently a person who's read, incidentally, as a diversion, I must tell you that the book has been, I'm told, the most reviewed book ever on Amazon by any first-time author in India, ever. It's got 138 reviews as of 135 or something this morning in just 4 months flat. For a person who's never written a book, that's just great. And out of the 134, 133 are 4 or 5 stars. And another thing which I just shared with them before coming here, and you're really the first public announcement that I'm making, is the book last night got shortlisted for the Tata Literature Business Book of the Year award. The reason the book is doing so well, which is the humor that it touched, is actually an extremely sad book. And the reason people are emotionally engaging with the book is that the book starts in a very simple manner. There's a whole lot of humor right through, and then it ends. A very good friend of mine who works as a journalist in the Hindu and did a very nice article in the Hindu about the book when the book got released. Some of you may have read it. He actually told me that the book reads like a Greek tragedy. And I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with Greek tragedies, but those who are, a Greek tragedy essentially is something where everything is nice and friendly and humorous, and then it ends in a very unpleasant manner. That's the crux of the story that I've written. It's a story which is extremely tragic, and the reason I wrote the book is because there is a lot of talk about startups. There's a lot of talk about India setting up a startup ecosystem, and thousands of people are starting up. I myself mentor, advise many startups, personally involved with quite a few of them. And the statistics indicate that for every 100 startups, 99 will fail. The definition of failure is that they will not achieve the financial outcome that was expected. One will go on to be financially successful, but 99 will not achieve those numbers. Quite a few of them will be average, modest successes. Many of them will shut down. But that's the nature of startups. They are all high risks. So there are two sides to a startup. The very positive, happy, where the entrepreneur becomes very famous, very wealthy, makes billions of dollars, and the other side where things don't end very positively. From a financial point of view, that's the second side. The reason I wrote the book is because there is a third side. A third side where I call it the dark side. A dark side is a side of startups that nobody wants to talk about. It's hidden beneath the surface. Entrepreneurs don't want to talk about it. Investors don't want to talk about it. And I personally went through it for several years. And I go back to the point that it completely destroyed me as an individual and us as a family. It was so difficult that for 3-4 years I was ashamed to even see my own face in the mirror. I did not have the courage to step out. I stopped taking my phone calls. Of course, nobody was calling me except creditors who were chasing me for money. But even those that called me, there were no friends. The people I reached out to for help, nobody helps. And I thought it is very important that as India's startup ecosystem grows, people must know about the dark side. But one of the words that he used, which is courage, I did not have the courage to actually stand up. I'm standing here and talking to all of you because I've built today the courage, and I must talk to you about one incident that led to it. Across the world, I think we treat failure and success very differently. In India, we associate the success of a venture with an entrepreneur, and if the venture becomes successful, then the entrepreneur is treated like a god. But if the venture fails, then the person is treated not just as a business failure, but as a person who's not worth talking to. And one of the things that I've touched upon in the book, and Suresh did mention when he was talking about, is how we treat those failures. I'm very happy that they employ some people. It doesn't happen in most places. The only place in the world that it happens is Silicon Valley, and I'm not surprised that they've recruited people there, because in Silicon Valley they value that. In India they don't. And in most parts of the world they don't. So the experience of having gone through that was so difficult that I finally said that I must go out and do it, but I did not have the courage. So one day I get a call. In fact, in July 2015, I was interviewed by this Mint. There's a Mint daily newspaper. It's a business newspaper. They did a center spread in July 2015, and that interview was very, very well read. I'm told in Mint that it's amongst their most read articles ever. It was center spread interview, and on reading the interview, a professor from IIM Bangalore called me and said, "Can you come and talk to my class? Because I have a class in IIM Bangalore called Corporate Failures." And the class is called Corporate Failures because he said most people who pass out doing an MBA, especially if they come out from an IIM, believe that they're made for success and everything that they touch will be success. And he said that's not true. Reality in life is not like that. But unfortunately in India, I am unable to find anybody who's able to share his failures. People are willing to stand up and talk about how successful they are. People are willing to come on stage and talk of all the big things that they did, because they know people will like, people will clap, people will appreciate, because everybody wants to be a success. But very few people will have the courage to come and stand and take the mic and say, "You know what, I failed." And he said, "Can you come and do this for my class?" It was the first time I stepped out, and it required a lot of push from my wife saying, "Why don't you go out? How long will you be at home?" So I went and I spoke. And 2 hours later, 2-3 things happened. The professor said that it was amongst the most intensely engaging lectures ever in IIM. Many of the students became emotional, and I myself ended up crying after that session, because I think it was that one event that completely allowed me to remove everything out of my life and get it out. And things in life are meant to happen in a certain way. 4 days later, I got a call, thanks to my cousin who connected me from Rupa Publications. Their editor called and said, "Can you write a book for us?" And I said, "Now I am prepared to write the book," because I think based on the evidence in that class at IIM, I realized that people are willing to listen to stories of failure, provided people are willing to stand up and share the stories of failure. So what I learned on the day is that it is not that people are not interested in knowing about failures. It is just that nobody was willing to talk about it. And I said, let me take the lead. and see if I could be, if not the first, certainly amongst the first people who are willing to stand up and share the stories of failure and what it teaches us. And hence the book Failing to Succeed. So that's the reason I wrote the book. And now I'm going to talk about the third and most important thing, which is what exactly is success, what exactly is failure. I think we all have different definitions of success. We all have different definitions of failure. But there is this very important saying, for years people have been saying it, behind every successful man there is a woman. To be politically correct, in today's world, people say behind every successful woman there is a man. I stand here and tell you that both are wrong. What I have learned is that behind every successful person, there are many failures. It doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman. And I'll tell you what the concept of failures being behind success is there. You know, in school, when we were all third standard, fourth standard, arithmetic, a simple thing that we learned is the concept of fractions. We all learned fractions. It's amongst the most powerful concepts in arithmetic that through the years we now use it. We use it in ratios, we use it in decimals, but fundamentally it's a concept of a fraction. A fraction where there's a small number above a big number. The small number is the numerator and the big number is the denominator. The value of the numerator is because of the denominator. If there was no denominator, there would be no numerator. And if there is no denominator, we wouldn't value the numerator. I treat the numerator as the success and the denominator as the failures. And I think the value of a numerator comes because of the denominator. The bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction, and thereby the most valuable is the success. Imagine a world that where everybody could bat like Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli, depending on which generation you are. Imagine a world where everybody could create music like Ilayaraja. A world where everybody could paint like Michelangelo. Everybody could write books like R.K. Narayan, my favorite author. We would not value these people if everybody was able to create that magic. These are the few who managed to achieve that success because many of us failed to reach that levels of success. The inspiration that these people create amongst all of us is for two reasons. Because all of us look up to what they have achieved, and many of us put in the efforts wanting to achieve all of that. Many of us want to create music. Millions. Only one goes and gets there. Millions of people every day in this country get up at 5 o'clock and go to their nets and bat. But there's only one Tendulkar who comes out, or one Virat Kohli who comes out. If everybody could bat like that, there's really no value. And it's the same logic, not just in India. It could be somebody playing tennis. Everybody wants to play like Roger Federer, only one can play. Which is essentially the concept of a numerator and a denominator. And the bigger the denominator, the bigger is the value to the numerator. That goes really against the concept of the arithmetic, but that's really success and failure. What about if millions of people were not failing to achieve something, the very few who go and achieve that would not be valued so much. This is a very, very important concept that I think all of us need to understand. And let me just talk about a few more things. Yeah. Why is it so important to learn from failure? The reason today I talk about failing is what I've learned is all, in fact, a person, a very good friend of mine who's mentioned in the book, in fact, his quote is there on the cover of the book, although this quote I missed out. Success teaches all of us a few lessons, but failure is the entire course curriculum. And this is true. And the reason is because when we succeed at something, very rarely do we take the effort to go and ask, why did I succeed? Nobody does that. But all of us go and question, why did I fail? And I think we are used to the concept of failure from a very young age, especially in a very competitive country like India. We put our kids in school and drive them to this concept where you have to get the highest marks because that is success, and if you get low marks, it is failure. We know it is the wrong thing to do. All of us know that it is the wrong thing to do. All of us go back and do it. Which means right from early childhood, this concept of success and failure is deeply ingrained in us as we grow. The trick is to actually ask questions when you fail and learn, because you learn a lot more from failure than from success. Success cannot teach you as much as failure can. There are multiple types of failures. One is a private failure, one is a public failure. A private failure is where you've gone through it, but you don't need to share it with others. Some of them are done very quietly. I applied for the job, I went for the interview, I didn't get it, I don't have to tell anybody, right? Nobody needs to know. Quietly I'll keep it, I didn't get the job, it's fine. But I'm not suffering about it. There are deeply impacting personal failures. The one that I went through, that's not like applying for a job and failing. It just destroyed my life. The best years of my life gone, money gone, everything that I had gone, reputation gone, name gone, everything gone, and I can't recover. Suffering from that from a private is a hugely debilitating experience. Totally. It's a destructive in nature. Now that I'm able to stand and share the concept of that failure in public, what I have now realized, and it sounds very strange, but I think in some ways a public failure is easier to deal with than a private failure. Simple private failures are easy to handle. I applied for a job, I didn't get, and the college admission, it's okay, doesn't matter. But experience which destroy people, I think it's better to share it. Because what it does, it gets a big load off you, and it reduces the burden on it. And once, imagine, once all of you know that I failed, it's okay, right? I mean, what else? I don't have to suffer anymore. So sometimes public failures are easier to deal with than private failures. The other type of failures in India, certainly in India and some parts of the world, is what I call gender-based failures. Men failing is all right. Women failing, we treat it with far more intensely and differently. Like we apply different yardsticks to men and women in a very unfair manner, I think in failures as well, we apply very different yardsticks. That's the other type of failure. And we do that as a society and we think it's fine, right? Completely unacceptable, but we all, when I say all, I think most of us indulge in it, we treat it as acceptable, we know it's wrong. It's exactly like going back and telling our children tomorrow morning, நீ எப்படியாவது first வரணும். I mean, எப்படியாவது first வர முடியாதுல்ல. I mean, there are only 50 people in the 100 people in the class, how can everybody come first? Right? And if everybody can come first, then you go back to the numerator saying everybody is the numerator, then there's no denominator. In which case the concept of success and failure goes away. We have to start learning as a society that unless we fail, lots of people fail at something, a few cannot succeed at it. It's not possible. You need many people in the class to come behind for that one person to come first. You need people to attempt and fail for that one person to succeed. Those are the things that I think we must learn. I must talk to you about 2-3 things, how people have appreciated. So, first is Bill Gates. You would think that he was a big success, and he was. Certainly he is amongst the most incredible successes, not because he built Microsoft. I think I respect him for his success, not because of Microsoft, but because of the fact that he is able to give back to society today in using his wealth and the fact that he made the wealth. He had a very interesting thing to say. I'm going to close my talk with just 2-3 mentions of some people. He had a very interesting thing to say. He says, success seduces very smart people into believing that they can never fail at something, which is completely wrong. The other thing that I must tell you about, and whenever you have time, you must go back. Some of you may want to Google. One of the biggest failures who went on to become one of the biggest successes is this author called J.K. Rowling. You've heard of her? Harry Potter. Most of us have not read Harry Potter, but we've all heard of J.K. Rowling. What we don't know is she was living on social thing, right? She had no money. Social government used to give her something. She had no place to stay. Single mother. Child sitting next to her, sitting on the bench, and she wrote a story. All publishers rejected to her till some guy called Bloomsbury said, okay, I'll publish it, and it became the biggest publishing phenomenon in the last 20-25 years, Harry Potter. She was a huge failure, and then she was a huge success. In 2008, she was invited to address, of all people, you wouldn't believe when she started writing, she was asked to address the 2008 class of the Harvard Business School, the highest level of management school class in this world, talk about success and failure. And she had, and you should watch the entire speech on YouTube, it's just inspirational, absolutely inspirational. But I'm going to touch on the most important point that she made. She said, we all fail. Every single person fails in this world. We fail at something. It's not possible not to fail at something, right? How can all of us be successful in everything that we do? We don't realize it, we don't talk about it, we don't share about it, but we certainly fail. In fact, the point that she made is, the only way to succeed or the only way not to fail at anything in life is to not attempt to do anything. In which case, you actually fail by default. Which actually, and I've done a whole lot of research while writing this book, the concept of success, the concept of failure. Am I really a failure? because the business that I started did not meet the financial outcome that people expected? Was it a failure? Can I learn something from it? How can I share my experiences? What is it that has brought me out? What has given me the courage to stand in groups of people like this and say with pride, say with confidence, say with happiness, grab this mic and say, you know what, I failed. And I'm happy to say that I failed. Because J.M. Carey, the Scottish author, is the creator of this character called Peter Pan. If you've read about Peter Pan, it's one of the most wonderful characters ever. He said what I believe is the most important thing. He said all of us are actually failures. At least the best of us are. Because the best people have to fail. If they don't, then they will never be the best. So I go back to the people, all the people who are in the numerator are actually people who are part of the denominator and manage to reach there. It's not the denominator happens on its own. You all start at the denominator, a few end up there. And so I close with the first point that I made. Behind every successful person, and I wish all of you huge, thank you so much. Yes, we can take it. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm happy to stand here or? Yeah, I'm happy to stand here. If you have any questions, yes, please.
Hello, sir. Very interesting topic. You have put it in a very good way, the topic. So I will say you have succeeded in talking about failures. And as you popularly say, the whole thing goes, failures are the stepping stone for success.
Yes.
So that comes into that.
I'm also hoping I will succeed in selling some books to all of you tonight.
So the two questions I have.
Sure.
One is, see, you have started this. See, everybody has got that kind of ambition to do something and to succeed. Ultimately, the final thought is that you want to succeed. Nobody starts with the idea, I want to fail. Correct? That's it. So when you have started with some group as whatever the entrepreneurship, so was it not that time you would have been doing some sort of review at every periodical stage? Is it not the time you found that, okay, are we in the right direction? Are we progressing? Is it not the time to call off? So that you would not have faced the level of failures, what you say, which would have, I mean, sort of you said it's totally demolished your life. Yeah. That's one question. Second thing is this your topic or anything? Is it to encourage entrepreneurs or discourage entrepreneurs who wants to come?
Sure. So the first one is a more simpler question. We certainly did periodic reviews of the business. An entrepreneur by very nature have to be very optimistic, right? You're always hoping that tomorrow is going to be a better day. It's very hard to say tonight is the last night. The logic is, if tonight I can sleep, tomorrow the sun will rise, hopefully things will happen. So you're always optimistic. And that optimism sometimes puts you in a very difficult situation. The second thing is, and you should certainly read the book, there are some things that happen which is beyond the normal, which is why it's such a devastating experience. In a normal case, it wouldn't have happened because it was such a unique set of experiences. We were forced into the situation. But I'm not going to reveal more because then you won't buy the book. But I think you should look at it. It's a very unfortunate set of events that prevented us from actually stopping us before we became. The second is a very important question. I think I'm actually a member, Thai Charter member. Tomorrow I'm speaking at ThaiCon. I'm actually an associate member of the National Entrepreneurship Network. I'm closely associated with Microsoft Ventures. I'm one of the people who are likely to be part of the Startup India Innovation Council that's being formed by the government in Delhi. So my job is to encourage entrepreneurs. The purpose of talking is not to people to stay away, but to actually come and start. Because if you remember, I finally said that if you don't do it, you will fail by default, right? The second thing that I say, and it's there in the book that I've mentioned, is 99% of startups will fail, but 100% of entrepreneurs will succeed. And I think it's a speech, it's a quote that I use in all my speeches. I repeatedly say 99% of businesses that you start will fail, but 100% of entrepreneurs will succeed. Because an entrepreneur's job is to do his or her best. Their job is to make sure that they put their blood, sweat, and tears, mind, body, heart, and soul into their venture every day. Whether the business succeeds or not is dependent on multiple things, but you must come back saying, I did my best. And if you do that, then you have succeeded. So my job is to make sure that more people come and become entrepreneurs, because by being an entrepreneur, you are a success. The business may or may not succeed, but that doesn't matter. So I hope nobody here is thinking that I'm trying to stop people. You should certainly. Yes, please.
I read a recent article that says that e-commerce is the future of the world.
Yes.
It has got $200 billion industry.
Yeah.
And these brick and mortar stores are going to be extinct in the near future.
Yeah.
So in India itself, we can see Flipkart.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that you are not a failure, but you are the forerunner.
Yes.
To show that success comes this way.
Sure.
So even the book would have been better titled as How Not to Fail in Retail.
Yes.
So that would have been very positive in my opinion.
Yes.
And regarding this e-commerce, none of these e-commerce firms today also are not making profits. It's the valuations they are trying to boost.
Correct.
Flipkart has made 600 crores last year.
Correct.
And the valuation is something like $20 billion.
Correct.
So based on the valuation, they keep on getting investors.
Correct.
But God knows when they are going to make profits.
Yes.
So my point is, you are the most successful entrepreneur who is a forerunner for the e-commerce industry.
Thank you so much. Anyway, just to add to what you said, last week I gave a speech which actually got picked up. Maybe some of you saw it. I actually spoke and some people didn't like it. I said, Flipkart is not going to make a profit, ever. And that got picked up, and it got picked up all over the place. It was in Economic Times. And obviously a lot of people in the industry didn't like it, but that's the truth. They're not going to make profits unless they change their business model. From a retail point of view, nothing is going to go extinct. This talk that offline stores will become extinct is not going to happen. There's nothing. I mean, Amazon started in the US in 1994. 23 years later, deeply penetrated high-tech country. Do you know how many people shop online in America and offline in America? I'll answer that question. 9% of people in America shop online. 91% still shop offline. So nothing is going to go extinct.
But if you see the facilities they are providing online, they get three-dimensional product, even a footwear you can see 3 dimensions. So you don't have to go to a shop and see for yourself.
Correct.
Second, in India, walking is a big problem.
Yep.
You can't go easily to one place
Sure.
to come back.
Sure.
And it's going to get worse.
Yes.
With the day.
Yes.
And so, at least in India, I see there's tremendous scope for.
Well, scope is there. I was only trying to say that nothing will go extinct. It will continue to grow at a very rapid rate. Unquestionably, there's a value there. Of course, it's a big industry. Yes, sir.
In success, you get pleasure,
Yeah.
which is short-lived. But in failure, you get wisdom, that is long-lived.
Yes.
That's why Saint Vivekananda said, take risk. Don't worry about the success or failure.
Yeah.
If you win, you can become a leader. If you fail, you can be a guide. You can become a guide like you. So, my thing is, you have given some details about your failure, but you have not told about your success. I think your success is that what you are now, the book what you have written,
Yes.
that is your success.
Absolutely. In fact, people tell me, what is the biggest thing that you've gained out of this? Well, beyond the wisdom, which is a point that you missed, it also helps you write books. So if you fail, successful people, so the difference, a successful person gets books written about them. Failed people can write books about themselves. So there's a big difference.
Next question is from me, sir. I'm here. Thank you for this lovely talk, sir. Sir, is this talk about success, or is this talk about 99% of the company not achieving their business goals and therefore not becoming successful in as per their expectation? Is it because most of the ecosystem of the tech startup or any kind of startups that we are hearing about, is this the market is about a winner take all market where it does not allow maybe a number 3 or even a number 2? And my second question is success an outlier phenomena in that case?
No, let me answer the first one. I don't think it's because of that. I think startups by their very nature try and create stuff that has not been done before. I mean, nobody is going to start up saying, I'll set up a steel plant, right? Nobody does that because steel plants are a very mature thing. So many steel plants are there. So you want to create new things. When you create new things, by its very nature, all new things are not liked by all customers. Some will be liked, some will be not. That's the reason failures happen. So startups by their very nature, most of it will fail because all products are not liked by customers. Many of them are not able to scale properly. Some of them think that's a great idea, but they're not able to do it in a profitable manner. There are multiple reasons. Whether success is an outlier, that again depends on the definition of success. So like I said, 99% of startups will fail because they will not achieve the financial outcome that they want. It doesn't mean that they failed. It just means that they didn't meet the financial outcome. And that's the important point that I was touching upon when I spoke, saying, as society, we must be able to separate the individual from the organization, the entrepreneur from the company, right? It's very, very important. When you do that, you will realize that businesses fail, but individuals learn, right? So it's not that all entrepreneurs fail. So it's not necessarily an outlier. Yes, sir.
Sir, when you started the business, you had the early mover advantage.
Yeah.
Is it that others who followed you copied your model and bettered on it? Could be one of the reasons for your trouble. Secondly, today, how is that? Today, there are so many such e-com operators.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I find the deep discounts they give, ultimately, the beneficiary is the consumer.
Yeah.
How does it work? Thank you.
So the first question, I would urge you to buy the book because I touch upon the topic very closely and I call it the first mover disadvantage. So I have written exactly about that, saying how being first in the tech industry is not always an advantage. Coming second or third is a big advantage. So you said we had a first mover advantage. I have written about it deeply, saying I think we suffered from first mover disadvantage. You should buy the book. The second part, in terms of the discount, I think as customers we should just enjoy the discount as long as it's available, because my prediction is it's not going to last long. Sure, it's lasted several years, it may last a few more years, but it's not going to last forever. So while people will continue to raise questions about business models and profitability, the fact of the matter is what do we care? Somebody is stupid enough to put the money. I think we should take the discount and keep buying the stuff till one fine day they run out of money. Then as customers will figure out what to do. Till such time, I think we should take advantage of it and enjoy it. But there's nothing that we can do. Why would we worry about it? The fact of the matter is somebody is willing to take those bets and they've got the money to take those bets.
Sir, in this period of utter devastation which you referred to
Yeah.
in your life,
Yeah.
what is the single most important thing which kept you going? Because from what you were indicating, I think
Yeah.
the worst could have possibly happened.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the family and the support system were all there.
Yes.
But if you could single out one thing which kept you going,
Yeah.
could you share that with us?
Yes. So we certainly went through a very difficult period, and I told you I can say it with great shame that the thought did cross my mind that should I just end everything and move on to a better world. Fortunately, I didn't. It would have been extremely stupid to have done that. But the only thing that kept me going, the only thing that I learned from all of this, and I think it's the most important lesson in life for everybody is, idum kadandu pogum. Any other questions? Yes, please, sure.
I am buying the book for sure.
Okay.
With that caveat,
Thank
what
you.
would be your, in hindsight, what you would have done differently? One thing if you would want to.
You know, people ask me this question, and I have thought about the answer very deeply. A, because it's a very interesting question. B, because I must try and give different answers every day, right? But I think over time I have realized that the honest answer to that question is actually we would have done nothing differently. Because we did what we believe was the best we could have done on that day. And that's what life is all about. I think given the circumstances, given the surroundings, what is the best that you can do? And we have done that. Would we have done things very differently? I don't think so. I mean, I think we're still very proud of the fact that whatever we did in 2000, it's never been done even now. I went to his house in 2000, in January 2000. I had the great privilege of meeting Mr. R.K. Narayan. His book, he allowed us to download a story called A Horse and Two Goats to be offered as a download on the internet in 2000. Even today, 17 years later, nobody downloads books in India. I mean, it's all moved on to Kindle and all of that. But to allow customers to download a short story to read was amongst the most innovative things that we did, even today unmatched. Why would I go and do anything differently? So I think we did the best we could. I would do nothing differently. If it had to end like this, well, it had to end like this. That's the other problem in life. If we always knew the ending, then life would be quite boring actually. Yes. I hope you don't have a time problem, huh? I can't hear you, sir.
Today I read the news in newspaper like Airbnb is 228% of growth in the India, as other like Make My Trip, other people are like giving a discount and they are not able to succeed in the Indian market. Again, they're giving they're a loss in the overall profit, but they are able to make it 228% of profitable in India. Why? Because they two startup the same big profit in the Airbnb, but not in Make My Trip. the same e-commerce system.
So I don't know whether Airbnb makes profits. I'm not sure what data you read. They're certainly growing. Unquestionably, they're growing in revenues. I'm not sure they're making profits. I'm not saying they are not. I think it is unlikely they are making profits because Airbnb is not built on the model of building profits today. I think they are all hoping to create huge profits years later. So at this point in time, they're not even planning to make profits. Make My Trip not making profits 20 years after raising money and 10 years after going public, well, I think it's a badly run company. If they can't make money, I mean, they've got the scale, they've got the brand, they should certainly make money. It's also a result of competitive pressures that are happening. People like Airbnb will put pressure. But we will see more and more out of that. I mean, the entire transportation system of the world is going to be impacted by Uber. Whether we like Uber as a company or not is a different issue. But the fact of the matter is they dramatically changed transportation. Are they profitable? They are not profitable. But they're creating massive change. Airbnb similarly is going to create massive change in the hospitality industry worldwide. They may be profitable, they may not be profitable, but all of us will benefit from those changes. Today, I don't think they make profits. Well, sure. I mean, there would be business impact like that individually. But even without knowing enough about business, I can tell you that as a society, we will all gain from the sharing economy in some way. We definitely will gain. There would be individual. But I'm sure smart people like you will figure out a way of running a profitable business given the changes. It's unlikely that people like you will say what to do. I think you'll struggle, there'll be challenges, but you'll find a smart solution. I have no doubt you'll find a smart solution. You may not know the answer today, but tomorrow you'll find out an answer saying, how do I make money given the new reality? That's what life is all about. But I think as consumers, all of us will benefit. Yes?
Is financial outcome the only lens through which we look at in terms of failure in your...
No. Good question. The answer is no.
Because our major focus in this entire discussion has been that financial outcomes for startups or businesses
Yeah.
are not positive and therefore failure.
Yes. No. The answer is no. It's the same thing. Is coming first in class the only way to measure the success of your kid? No. We all do it. We all want our daughter to come first. We all push her saying, "Nee first vandada agano." We all know it is wrong, but we all do it.
Because I don't think the day you started, 94 or something, 99, you never started because you wanted to make money.
No.
You started because you wanted to create something.
Actually, we did it because we wanted to have a lot of fun, to be honest. But you're right. Unfortunately, the reason I said financial outcome is because the human mind, and I was reading this very interesting book, I'm not sure you've read this, there's a new book by Dan Brown called Origin, I'm not sure any of you have read it. So it's a typical pot-boiling thriller, so I'm not recommending the book. But I think there are parts of the area where it talks about the human mind. The human mind essentially tries to bring order into chaos. The reason all of us believe that a person who, our son is or daughter is in the engineering stream and in the arts, we immediately say, BA padikira, engineering padikira, right? I mean, I think in our mind we think an engineering is above arts, whereas logically that's not true. A liberal arts is far more complex to study and far more deeply sensitive. But because it is chaotic in nature, the human mind does not. We like engineering because we put numbers to it. That's the reason people associate financial outcome, because it's easy to say that if you make 22% gross margins and 8% PAT, then you are successful. Because the human mind needs order in chaos. That's the reason. I'm not saying that that's the best, only way to measure a startup. It is an important way. I'm also not saying startups should not make profits. I think they should make profits. But it isn't the only measure. That I agree with you. But that's what people want. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much.